Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and felt them drift away while they're still standing right in front of you? At first, everything felt effortless, but now you're second-guessing every word, chasing silence with more effort, and wondering why the connection feels like a test you're always failing. She hasn't said it, but you feel it. Something's shifted, and somewhere deep down, you're not sure if you're losing her or losing yourself. What if the problem isn't that you're doing too little, but that you're doing exactly what you were taught to do in a game that rewards the opposite? I won't tell you what to believe. I'll only share what I've learned by walking through it. Stay with me. What comes next may not be easy, but it just might set you free. 1. Never lose yourself for love. Have you ever noticed how love can begin with clarity, only to end in confusion? You start out grounded, focused, calm. She's drawn to you, not just your words or gestures, but your stillness, your purpose, your center. And then slowly, almost invisibly, something shifts. One moment you're walking your path, the next you're orbiting hers. You didn't plan for it, but now you find yourself waiting on her replies, anxious about her mood, adjusting your life just to maintain her attention. The peace you once carried becomes dependent on her validation. That's not connection. That's collapse. The Stoics warned us of this trap long ago. Epictetus wrote, "He who is not master of himself is a slave, not to chains, but to emotions, not to another person, but to the illusion that love requires abandoning yourself." And this is where so many strong men fall, not from weakness, but from forgetting where their true strength lies. In the early moments of a relationship, attraction is often built on distance, not the kind that creates coldness, but the kind that reveals self-respect. She sees you as someone with a life, with discipline, with silence that cannot be disturbed. This is magnetic. But the moment you start craving her presence more than your own peace, the roles reverse, and the shift, once set in motion, is hard to undo. Let me tell you a story. A man I once knew, let's call him Thomas, had built his life with care. He rose early, read deeply, trained daily. When he met a woman who captivated him, he offered what any noble man would: kindness, attention, loyalty. At first, she responded warmly, but as months passed, Thomas began rearranging his days around her whims. He skipped his morning routine to stay on late-night calls. He stopped lifting because she needed him to help her through emotional turbulence. His purpose faded. His boundaries blurred, and eventually the warmth in her eyes turned into critique, distance, and disinterest. Not because she was cruel, but because what once drew her in was now gone. Thomas had sacrificed his frame, and without it, her respect dissolved. This is not her fault, nor is it his. It's the nature of attraction. As Marcus Aurelius said, "To love only what happens, what was destined, no greater harmony." But harmony cannot exist when one abandons their center to orbit another. In the Stoic sense, love must be the union of two sovereign souls, not one dissolving into the other. When you become emotionally dependent, when your sense of value shifts from the inner citadel to external approval, you hand away your strength. And no one is drawn to weakness masked as kindness. She begins to carry the masculine weight of the relationship, making decisions, setting boundaries, holding space because you've let go of it. And the deeper paradox? The more you try to regain her affection through affection, the more invisible you become, not because you aren't enough, but because you're no longer you. Stoicism teaches us that discipline, reason, and self-respect are not optional virtues in love. They are the very ground upon which true connection stands. You must never give away the reins of your mind in exchange for temporary affection. For what is love, if not the expression of virtue under fire? Let's make this clear. A woman is not repelled by your care. She is repelled by your collapse. She is not bored by your attention. She is bored by your lack of center. When you abandon your mission to serve her moods, she feels it, not just consciously, but viscerally. She may not be able to explain why, but something in her pulls away. And that pull is not cruelty, it's instinct. Her deeper nature is calibrated to respond to strength, presence, and a man who is unmoved by storms, including the emotional ones she brings. So if you find yourself drifting, losing your edge, over-explaining, checking your phone too often, waiting for her next cue, pause. Ask yourself, what part of me have I betrayed just to keep her interested? Reclaim that part. Reclaim your structure. You were never meant to trade your selfhood for companionship. Love is not about becoming smaller, it's about becoming truer. A real man does not need to be chased, nor does he chase. He simply walks his path, and those meant to walk beside him will match his pace. And if they don't, he keeps walking. This is the first lesson. Never abandon your nature to gain closeness, because in doing so, you lose both her and yourself. And what's left is an echo, not a bond. In the next part, we'll talk about how to project that inner stillness so powerfully it speaks louder than words and draws in what doesn't need to be pursued. 2. Power comes from stillness. Have you ever watched a man walk into a room and command respect without a single word? Not because of what he wore or what he said, but because of what he didn't need to prove. There's something about a man who carries himself with quiet certainty. He doesn't chase, doesn't overextend, doesn't try to impress. He simply is. And that being speaks louder than performance ever could. Most don't understand the power of this presence because most have never built it. They've been too busy proving, pleasing, reacting. The Stoics would call this the art of being undisturbed. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look." But instead of looking inward, many men look outward for cues, for signals, for reassurance. And in that outward glance, they lose their frame. They begin adjusting their tone, their pace, their schedule not out of wisdom, but out of the silent fear of not being enough. And ironically, that fear is the very thing that diminishes them. There's a quiet test that unfolds in the early stages of many relationships. It's not spoken, not written, but it's felt. She's watching, not in malice, but instinctively. She senses how a man responds to her beauty, her presence, her unpredictability. Is he shaken? Is he too quick to answer, too eager to please? Does his voice rise with nervous excitement? Does his energy lean forward in search of approval? If so, something in her retreats, not out of superiority, but because the ground beneath him is clearly unstable. And what is unstable cannot hold anything, especially attraction. I remember a man named Elias. He wasn't flashy, he didn't talk much, but he had this strange gravity about him. You could be in a room full of noise and still feel his calm, like a stone in a stream. When he spoke, people leaned in, not because he was loud, but because he wasn't. He dated a woman many would consider intimidating, charming, admired, constantly surrounded by attention. And yet, Elias never rushed his words around her. He never flooded her with compliments. He never adjusted his schedule to chase her down. If she said she was free Saturday, he'd consider it. If she changed her mind, he didn't flinch. He didn't punish, didn't pursue. He remained. And in that stillness, she softened. You see, The wise man doesn't perform for love. He doesn't become animated when in the presence of beauty. He doesn't overload conversations with effort. He lets the silence speak. He holds space, and through that space he invites others to rise or walk away. And if they walk away, so be it. His ground remains his own. The Stoic approach to relationships isn't about tactics. It's about being so rooted in your nature that the winds of external behavior cannot move you. Seneca once wrote, "The greatest empire is to be emperor of oneself, and in love, as in war, you are either commanding from within or being commanded from without." So how do you embody this presence? You begin by detaching from the outcome. When you stop needing to win her over, you stop betraying yourself. Your tone evens out. You speak slower. You say less. You don't rush to agree nor to disagree. You listen, not to respond, but to understand. Your body remains calm. Your hands stay where they are, not reaching in search of validation. You let moments pass without the need to fill them. And when she tells you something dramatic or exciting, you don't overreact. You meet it with balance. Not because you're cold, but because you're clear. Your nervous system doesn't spike at her excitement. It responds with dignity, because you've been here before, because the world has tested you far deeper than this. Even in your scheduling, your posture speaks. You don't drop your life at the first invitation. You weigh it. You consider. You are available, yes, but on terms that honor your rhythm. You don't punish change, but you don't contort to it either. You show that your life is full, not as performance, but as truth. You are not desperate for her time because you have purpose occupying yours. This is not about manipulation. It's about equilibrium. It's about sending the silent message that says, "You are welcome here, but I will not lose myself to keep you." And in doing so, you ignite a different kind of interest, not the shallow fire of immediate attention, but the steady burn of deep respect. Understand this. What most men call attraction is often just anxiety wrapped in charm. And what most women long for is not just attention, but steadiness. A man who cannot be rattled by beauty. A man who does not shift with the tides of affection. A man who walks into every moment with the same posture he carried before she arrived. So let your voice be still. Let your body speak less. Let your words be few and full. Walk into every room knowing who you are. And if you find yourself starting to overextend, to impress, to earn, pause, return. Your value was never in your reach. It was in your restraint. This is how you outlast the noise. This is how you stay remembered long after you've left the room. Not because you shouted, but because you never needed to. And now that you've reclaimed your posture, in the next part we'll uncover the deeper reason why you must never place all your attention on one woman, and how preserving your freedom protects the very respect that love needs to grow. 3. Value is earned, not chased. Have you ever wondered why someone becomes more interested in you the moment you stop focusing all your energy on them? It's strange, almost unfair. You gave them attention, time, exclusivity, and yet their interest faded. But when you pulled back, they leaned in. The Stoics would say, this is simply the nature of desire. Epictetus put it clearly, demand not that events should happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do, and you will go on well. In other words, understand how things work, not how you hope they would. And one of the deepest truths in relationships is this: the more someone feels they have you, the less they work to deserve you. When a man gives exclusivity too soon, what he calls commitment, she may interpret as desperation. He believes he's showing loyalty. She feels he's already surrendered. And what's given too quickly without merit is never respected for long. In the arena of connection, value is not declared, it's perceived. And what determines perception is not your words, but how rare your presence feels. I once knew a man named Caleb, stoic in posture, precise in action. He wasn't cold, he was clear. He never claimed to be exclusive with any woman unless it was mutual, proven, and aligned with his values. Not because he played games, but because he valued his time as much as he would value hers. He saw each connection as a reflection of his discipline, not his desire. Caleb once told me, if I offer something sacred, it must be because it was earned, not begged for. And the women he spent time with, they knew. He wasn't trying to be chaste. He simply refused to hand his devotion to someone who had not first demonstrated their own. Modern men are taught that exclusivity is a virtue offered early, a proof of seriousness. But Stoicism offers a different lens. Don't attach before you've observed. Just as the Stoic studies his own reactions before engaging in argument, so should a man observe the actions of a woman before offering loyalty. A woman's presence in your life should be tested not by interrogation, but by her consistency, by the way she returns energy, by her willingness to share in effort, in respect, in time. Now you might ask, isn't it wrong to date more than one woman? Isn't that a betrayal of virtue? Not if done with clarity, not if done with calm, honest detachment. The Stoic path does not forbid choice, it forbids illusion. When you pretend loyalty while still unsure of character, you deceive. But when you walk with open intentions, with dignity and reason, you offer no illusion, only truth. If she senses she's the only one you have, before she's done anything to earn that place, her nature begins to doubt your worth. Not maliciously, but instinctively. It's like being offered a throne no one else wants to sit on. Suspicion grows where there should have been admiration. She begins to question, not just you, but herself. Why is he so available? Why is there no one else waiting? What am I really winning here? But when she senses other women are also drawn to you, her mind shifts. She wonders what they see. She feels the quiet tension of potential loss. And in that tension, she becomes more attentive, more present, more deliberate in how she shows up. This isn't a manipulation. It's simply the consequence of human nature. Even Marcus Aurelius admitted, what we do now echoes in eternity. And in the present moment, what echoes louder than words is the way we structure our time, our attention, our availability. A man who has options but remains grounded does not lose himself in any one path. He walks with openness, but guards his sanctuary. Caleb, for example, once had dinner plans with a woman who asked to reschedule twice. Most men would agree just to see her, but he didn't. He said, "No problem, let me know when you're certain." And he meant it, not as punishment, not to create scarcity, but because his time was his own. She reached back the next day, not only with sincerity, but with respect. She had seen something rare, a man who did not grasp. The principle here is simple. A man who is chosen by many, but attached to none, reveals strength. A man who is attached before being chosen reveals need. And women, like all humans, are drawn to strength more than comfort. She wants to win you, not be handed to her. She wants to earn her place, not have it gifted without merit. She wants to feel that choosing you was a privilege, not a favor. This is why the warrior path of the Stoic man is not in excess, but in discipline. You don't chase, you don't boast, you simply don't offer the whole until she's earned a seat at the table, not through games, but through observation. Not through avoidance, but through self-respect. You are not cold, you are clear. You are not multiple to hide fear, you are multiple to express abundance. You do not pretend to have options, you simply live a life where those options exist. And when the moment comes to choose, you choose from strength, not from loneliness. You invite her in only when she's shown she can stay, and even then, you do not hand her the throne. You walk beside her, but always as a man who would still be whole if she ever walked away. That is the power of detachment paired with discernment. That is how you command respect without demanding it. And as we step into the next principle, we'll explore how removing all care, not pretending but truly letting go, awakens a level of calm and strength that not even desire can disturb. Lead yourself, not the relationship. Have you ever felt that the more you tried to show you cared, the more someone drifted away? You gave attention, set boundaries, offered clarity, thinking it would bring you closer, but instead it made you feel more exposed. There's a strange discomfort that comes with investing in someone and realizing your efforts became your weakness. In trying to lead the relationship, you lost command over yourself. The Stoics never chased affection. They understood that true authority begins within. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And yet today, many men confuse leading others with leading themselves. They confuse boundary setting with attachment. They mistake emotional reactions for masculine presence. And in doing so, they reveal what Epictetus warned against: dependence on things beyond their control. Here's the paradox. The moment she knows your inner state depends on what she says, who she sees, how quickly she replies. She no longer feels led, she feels watched. She feels your actions are not rooted in virtue, but in outcome. And nothing kills respect faster than a man who's lost his center. I knew a man named Julian. To the outside world, he had it all together, sharp, decisive, articulate. But when he entered a relationship with a woman he deeply admired, his strength began to leak. At first, it was subtle. He would ask where she was going, not out of control, but out of curiosity laced with insecurity. He'd check in more often, just to see if you're okay. He'd offer advice she never asked for. Slowly, his clarity turned into concern, his concern into worry, and his worry into weight. One night, when she stayed out late and didn't reply, he waited in silence for her text. Not because he wanted to, but because he needed to. And that need cost him something sacred: self-command. The Stoic path rejects this erosion. It teaches you to hold your line, not because you're uncaring, but because you refuse to collapse into emotional dependence. When your peace can be stolen by someone else's actions, you're not in a relationship, you're in bondage. You become reactive, and what you react to owns you. So how does the Stoic navigate this? By removing the craving to be understood, praised, reassured. He walks the narrow road of non-attachment, not to people, but to outcomes. If she wants to talk to another man, so be it. If she wants to disappear for days, he lets her. Not from indifference, but from insight. He does not try to control her choices. He observes them. And from those observations, he draws conclusions, not accusations. This isn't coldness. This is courage. It takes strength to sit in the silence of uncertainty without reaching for control, to let things unfold without chasing after closure, to love someone while staying loyal to your own rhythm. And when you master this, something profound happens. She comes to you, not because you demanded it, but because you didn't. Here's a deeper truth. Many women don't want perfection. They don't seek a man who has it all figured out. They seek a man who is real, strong in presence, but open in growth. A man who doesn't pretend to be untouchable, but doesn't fall apart when touched. In many cases, she wants to add value. She wants to contribute to your journey. And if you show up already complete, already immovable, with no space for influence, she feels unnecessary, and people rarely stay where they feel unneeded. But this doesn't mean becoming weak for connection. It means living a life where you are firm in direction, but flexible in evolution. You don't hide your imperfections. You show them carefully. You allow her to see the cracks, not as flaws to fix, but as spaces where her presence could matter. You don't hand her your life and ask her to manage it. You walk your path, and if she offers tools along the way, you accept them with grace. Julian learned this late. After months of over-offering, he finally stepped back. He stopped explaining himself. He stopped over-communicating. He began returning to his craft, his discipline, his silence, and slowly she returned, not to the version of him who waited for her message, but to the man who didn't need it, the man who had rediscovered the edge that first drew her in. There's a lesson here. If you want someone to invest in you, leave them space to act. Stop filling the gaps with reassurance. Stop managing their emotions with your behavior. Trust that if she truly wants to walk beside you, she will. And if she doesn't, you were never leading her, you were following your fear. So let her talk to others if she wishes. Let her be distant if she must. You are not her guardian. You are your own governor. And if your stillness stirs something in her, let it be because you held your line, not because you reached for hers. Remember this: she does not fall for the man who pleads to be kept. She falls for the man who walks without begging, the one who can say, I care, but I do not cling. I notice, but I do not chase. I feel, but I do not fold. That is the kind of man who creates gravity, who draws others in, not by control, but by calm, who leads, not because he needs followers, but because he knows where he's going. And in the next part, we'll explore the quiet test that few men pass, how to respond when her warmth disappears, and what to do when your calm becomes her mirror. 5. Let her femininity rise naturally. Have you ever felt confused by the coldness of a woman who once seemed interested? One moment, there's warmth in her eyes, and the next, a chill you can't explain. You begin questioning yourself. Did I say something wrong? Am I not enough? But the truth, my friend, may have nothing to do with your words. It has everything to do with the energy you're giving off. And that's where many men fall, not because they're weak, but because they've never been taught what strength truly means in the realm of desire. Seneca once wrote, "He who is brave is free." And that includes the bravery to be still, to not chase, to remain unmoved in the face of emotional confusion. A woman's affection, especially in the early stages, is not something given freely. It is withheld, not out of malice, but as a test. She wants to see if you'll compromise your center to earn hers. Will you bend yourself to win her attention, or will you stay grounded, calm and composed, unmoved by her games? Imagine a man named Lucius. He starts seeing a woman who at first shows some warmth, but over time she becomes distant. Lucius panics. He buys gifts, compliments her constantly, always asks when they can meet. He begins orbiting her, hoping to win back that early affection. But the more he chases, the colder she gets. Why? Because he failed the test. He revealed that her pull controls his actions. Now, contrast that with another man, Titus. He meets the same kind of woman. She withdraws emotionally after a few dates, but Titus doesn't react. He stays courteous, but focused on his own life. He doesn't ask where she's been or why she's silent. And slowly she begins to wonder, why isn't he chasing me? Do I not affect him? Is he used to women like me? That question is the seed of attraction. Because the moment she starts evaluating her own place in your world, the dynamic shifts. Her femininity, softness, nurturing, warmth begins to rise naturally, not because you asked for it, but because you didn't. This is where the Stoic man separates himself from the emotional reactor. Epictetus said, "It is not events that disturb people, but their judgments about them." Most men judge withdrawal as rejection. But what if it's just a test of your grounding? What if your calm detachment, your quiet confidence, is the very thing that draws her back? Let's be clear, this doesn't mean you become cold or distant out of spite. That's still reacting. No, you remain pleasant, present, but emotionally self-possessed. You live your life, you lead yourself, and when you do, you stop trying to extract feminine energy and instead allow it to flow toward you. Her instinct to nurture, to bond, to care, it only awakens in the presence of a man who doesn't seek it out like a starving beggar, but who stands as one already full. Because here's the paradox: when you're emotionally available too soon, when you're constantly present, agreeable, reliable in every moment, what you think builds attraction may actually kill it. What feels like love to you may feel like boredom to her. Why? Because you've taken away the mystery. You've made yourself predictable, safe. And what is safe often becomes invisible. Instead, learn to sit with discomfort. Let silence linger. Don't rush to reply. Don't always agree. Have your own thoughts, your own rhythm. That unpredictability doesn't mean instability. It means presence without dependence. It means letting her wonder what's going on in his world, and that's where the intrigue grows. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Apply this here. You do not have power over her emotions, her choices, or her rhythms, but you do have power over your reaction to them. And when you claim that inner power, when you stop dancing for her attention, you create the space for her to step forward voluntarily. That is the most beautiful kind of affection, the one that is not bought, begged for, or manipulated, but given freely by someone who sees your stillness and chooses to enter it. A woman's feminine grace is not a prize to win. It is a response to masculine presence. And that presence, when rooted in reason and discipline, is the quiet fire that pulls her in without saying a word. So remember this: if you must chase softness, you'll never earn it. But if you master the art of being undisturbed, it will find you. But what happens when, in trying to lead, you lose your grip instead? Let's look at another example. And from that place, we step into the next truth: how emotional unpredictability, not consistency, often keeps attraction alive. Have you ever tried your hardest to be the perfect man for someone? Protective, dependable, attentive, only to watch her pull away with growing indifference. You thought you were doing everything right. You set boundaries, you showed leadership, you made it clear that you cared. But what you didn't realize is that in the very act of trying to lead the relationship, you gave away something far more precious: your center. Epictetus said, "We are not disturbed by what happens, but by our opinions about what happens." When you react to a woman's behavior with emotion, with effort, with control, you've shown her that your peace is negotiable, that you're invested not in your virtue, but in her response. And once that happens, your power slips quietly out of your hands. Let me tell you a story. There was a man named Cassius who prided himself on being a good partner. When his girlfriend talked to another man, he stepped in protectively. When she stayed out late, he set firm boundaries. He believed he was showing strength. but all she saw was a man whose emotions could be stirred by her choices, a man whose stability depended on how she behaved. Then there was another man, Tiberius. He faced the same situations, but when his partner flirted or withdrew, he remained unmoved. Not with resentment, but with indifference. He didn't ask where she was going. He didn't rush to set rules. His life continued. His focus remained inward, and that silence, that calm, it spoke louder than any confrontation. This is the paradox most men never learn. The more you show that you care, the more she tests how much you're willing to bend. But when your energy remains centered, she loses the ability to use attention, affection, or absence as leverage. You've become immune to the power games. And that, ironically, is when she starts investing. It's not because you made her feel chaste. It's because you made her feel that your world doesn't revolve around her whims. And in a world full of men who orbit women for scraps of affection, your indifference becomes magnetic. Stoic masculinity isn't loud. It doesn't bark commands or draw lines in the sand. It lives quietly in a man who walks forward whether she follows or not. In a man who leads himself with such purpose that she must decide whether to join him or be left behind. If you want her to chase your attention, stop giving it so freely. If you want her to value your time, stop offering it by default. She should be the one wondering if she's good enough for you, not the other way around. Let her make the plans. Let her initiate the conversation. Let her wonder why you're not always available. Not to play games, but to return to your center. To stop making her your sun and start orbiting your own mission. Most men fear this. They think if they don't show effort, they'll lose her. But here's the truth. You don't lose someone by staying grounded. You lose yourself by chasing. A man who leads himself never has to ask where he stands in someone else's eyes. His very presence defines the terms of the connection. So detach. Not with coldness, but with clarity. Audit your habits. Where are you seeking her validation instead of earning your own? Where are you checking your phone too often, waiting on her to confirm your worth? Where have you let her become the judge of your value, and then correct it, not with anger, but with quiet refusal? Let your attention become something that must be earned. Let your time feel rare, not desperate. Let your presence feel chosen, not given. Because when you truly don't need her to act a certain way for you to feel strong, stable, and fulfilled, you become the one thing no one can resist. A man who is full on his own. She may not understand it at first. She may even try harder to test it, but over time she will feel it, the rare, unshakable weight of a man who has mastered himself. And from that place, you will no longer ask what she thinks of you. You'll simply watch how she chooses to rise or walk away, and either way, you'll remain undisturbed. And that is the final lesson. Let her rise or let her go, but never follow, because when your core stays still, the world moves around you. You now stand at a quiet fork in the road. Stay in the pattern of overgiving and confusion, or rise into clarity, calm, and self-respect. This isn't about control. It's about becoming a man who no longer chases what he can attract through presence alone. If this spoke to you, subscribe for more and share below. What hit hardest? Stay grounded. The next step begins in the silence you choose now.